Okay, we are back with part 2 of this insanely massive tier list. Maybe it'll be 3 parts. Who knows? Maybe I won't even get to finish it in this episode, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll play it by ear. As my friend Zach will say, we'll play it by year. Anyway, last we left off, I was simping for Jaime hard, talking about how he's like the best character ever written, which is true. Wholeheartedly agree. This time I'm going to be a little bit kinder to myself because I've been talking so much and I didn't drink like any water last time. My throat got totally fucked. So I'm just going to like drink a lot of water throughout this. So if I have to pause for water, please forgive me, viewers. Anyway. Janos Slint's asshole dick. Motherfucker. He's not incredibly written. That's the thing. These tiers were kind of a mistake because, like, so many people, I'm like, they're okay written, and I can't put them in, you know. Jaqen H'ghar, a very interesting character. The show kind of condenses him with a different character known as the Kindly Man, which I keep forgetting that they're not the same character in the books. And Jaqen is, like, off in doing some shit at the Citadel. Interestingly enough, in Sam's POV, we'll see him again, which is interesting because, like, pretty sure in the show the two have no interaction whatsoever. Very interested to see where Jaqen's story goes and what he's up to and what the master plan going on here is, but we don't know it yet, so I'm gonna put him mid tier. Jorah Mormont, Lord Commander before Jon of the Night's Watch. You know. He's okay. It's interesting when you see Jorah, who is part of a completely different POV and like completely different area of the world, and not at all intersecting with this Jon's story, and is like totally removed. Yet you know the context that Jeor was Jorah's father and is the one that exiled him and took away his sword. So it's like you see, and then Jeor gave Longclaw to Jon. So it's like you see like these really genius interconnections throughout the story that George does incredibly well, where it's like you wouldn't think these two characters have any reason to interact or cross paths, but they're still connected. And I think this is a cool way of like George flexing that skill, though I don't think it's like a very interesting character otherwise. So mid tier. Jane Poole, oh fucking Jane Poole. Yeah, I feel, my heart goes out to Jane Poole because, you know, Ramsay married, in the show, Ramsay marries Sansa. That's a whole fake arc made up for the show. In the books, they frame Jane Poole as Arya, who is still missing, who we know isn't over a different country, fucking training to be a faceless assassin. But they sort of like are like, okay, the Bolds are like, we can like solidify our hold in the north and our claim to the north that we took like fucked uply by pretending Jane Poole, this like common girl who was Sansa's childhood friend, I think. We're gonna pretend she's Arya, marry her to the worst human being in existence, to where she's abused to the point of extreme trauma, and eventually, like, Theon, part of his redemptive arc is rescuing her and escaping with her, like he does with Sansa in the show. High tier. I think she's just... she is a plot vehicle in the sense that she is to show another side of how evil and terrible Ramsay is, as if we didn't know that already, but also, like, she's interesting in her own right because you get to see the psychological effects of Ramsay on someone who is not Theon. Theon's an asshole. Got fucked up. Didn't deserve to get fucked up that deeply, but he's still a dick. Jane Poole, on the other hand, is like this purely innocent child, and she just gets the worst abuse and trauma-inducing stuff happen to her ever. And high tier for that. Jane Westerling, plot mechanic. I'm gonna say poorly written shit tier, to be honest. Like, she's not really a character, she's just a plot mechanic for the Red Wedding to happen. G-Queen, another one of Daenerys's plot mechanic handmaidens. Jogo. Oh my god, why am I blanking who Jogo is? Who? Sorry. Joffrey Baratheon. Oh. Him and Ramsay are the prime most examples in the series of incredibly written shit tier. Because just the worst, most despicable people. But I think what makes Joffrey stand out is that he is a child that was raised incredibly poorly. And I think this is very similar. He's a very strong parallel to Aegon II in Fire and Blood, the prequel book, and the show now, House of the Dragon. Because they are children who were set up to rule and just totally raised poorly by absent parents and just became absolute monsters and menaces just because they have no one to keep them in check. It's like giving unlimited power to an abandoned child. Like, they're obviously going to do insane shit with it and ruin people's lives because they have no concept of, like, right from wrong. They have no moral teaching. And I think that's what makes Joffrey such a fascinating character. He's one of the worst people ever written, but you still understand why. And I think that's why Joffrey is just incredibly written shit here, where it's like, I can't put him in best characters of all fiction because, like, he's just absolutely horrible. But when we get to Ramsay, I'll talk about this more, but I think Ramsay's unique in a different way, and I'll get to that. Though the two are meant to be, like, the continuity of that presence in the story, where when Joffrey dies, Ramsay's role in the story amplifies, and then he takes over that sort of, like, place in the narrative. Jojen Reed, kind of, I hate to say it because he's interesting, but he's kind of a plot vehicle character for Bran. I'm going to say low tier. He's interesting, but, like, not. His personhood is interesting, but what he does isn't interesting, but what he does for the plot is. So, low tier. Jon Arryn, he's just a presence. He's not a character. He dies before the story, but his death is the catalyst for a lot of the story in a way. Because the mystery of who killed him is, like, what sets off a lot of the events of the first book and eventually the War of the Five Kings, which becomes the primary conflict of the series. And it's all a domino effect from the death of Jon Arryn. So he is 100% just a plot convenience. But because he does so much for the story as this plot contrivance, mid-tier. Jon Connington. Oh my god, Jon Connington. Late edition, only becomes a character in the last book released, To Dance with Dragons, but he is fascinating. So he was Rhaegar's best friend. Pretty sure it's, like, so heavily implied that it's considered canon that he was in love with Rhaegar in an unrequited situation, but he can't get over Rhaegar. Like, it's 20-something years later, 30 years later, I can't remember the exact timeline right now off the top of my head, and he's existing for Rhaegar still. He's raising up young Griff to sort of be his right-hand man when he takes young Griff, who I believe he truly believes young Griff is Rhaegar's son. He is being manipulated into believing that. I think young Griff is actually Illyrio's spawn in the Blackfire. I think young Griff doesn't know that, and Jon Connington doesn't know that. Or Jon Connington doesn't want to believe it. It's true. But I love characters that are, like, just so broken by the loss of one person. That's a trope I really love, where it's just like they cannot get over it, and it's their entire drive and entire motivation is for the person he was in love with who died decades ago, and he's just still purely existing for that person, and he sort of just, like, kind of is like the only way I can keep my, like, connection with Rhaegar alive is by becoming the right-hand man of his son. And he becomes, like, this loyal warrior for his son. And the fact that he's trying to help his son, young Griff, take over Westeros, conquer Westeros, but his time is ticking because he has grayscale, and he's going to die in a matter of, like, months. And also, he could accidentally be responsible for a reemergence of grayscale and a breakout in Westeros. And it's like, he's selfishly just like, if you have grayscale, you should go fuck off like the stone men in the ruins of the Royan. Like, go somewhere isolated from humans so you don't infect other people. And the fact that he's just so dedicated to this life purpose that he just surrounds himself with people at all times, despite it being incredibly dangerous, is just shows how interesting the character is. High tier. All to say, I am rambling way too much. I gotta cut this down. Jon Snow, you know you love him. He's main character core. You know, he's just a good boy. He's just a good lad. He especially, and his character arc is interesting. His duality between the wildlings and his role in the Night's Watch, very interesting. His duality between family, his new family, his old family, and his found family, and what matters more to him, very interesting. I love his like sort of descent into hubris, I guess you can call it, that leads to his assassination at the end of A Dance with Dragons. He's going to be resurrected. But like he was in the show. But it's just like his hubris when he becomes Lord Commander just gets the better of him, and he just stops regarding what his own men will think. He's just like, I know this is the right decision, so I'm going to do it. It is the right decision, but he fails to take into account how it will like influence the behaviors and impact his own men. And I think that's why he's so blindsided when they eventually turn on him. He's like, what? How could they turn on me? And it's like, yeah, you were making decisions that in their eyes were fucking them over all book. And you just didn't see it because they were the morally correct decisions, but you just were not paying attention to that. You know, he's classic. He's not one of my favorite characters, but he's a classic. He's main character core, high tier. John Umber. Can't really remember his particular role in the story. I'm gonna give him a low tier. He's just like a northern filler character in my opinion. Jorah Mormont, fascinating character because you know, he has a corrupt backstory where he was in love with, I think, a Hightower actually, and he was trying to win her over, but he just didn't have the finances. So he got like desperate and like traded slaves in Westeros, which is heavily illegal and taboo in Westeros. Unlike other countries, and he got fucking caught, and he got exiled from Westeros by Ned and his father, and he sort of, you know, eventually when Daenerys ages up, he becomes sort of take the role of her advisor, but you find out he's actually trying to get a pardon, and he's trying to get back to Westeros behind the scenes. So he's trying to get a pardon by spying on her for the Robert Baratheon regime, and like, you know, pretty much trying, like, helping to facilitate her assassination by like telling Robert, who will then send his assassins, where she is at a given moment, and just heavily endangering this person that he's supposed to be like the right hand like guard of. Yet in a very pedophilic, perverted way, he does fall in love with Daenerys, and the thing is, he's so like desperate to get back to Westeros and get his name cleared up that he doesn't stop. He doesn't stop reporting on her, and even though he's in love with her and believes in her cause, and it just totally fucks up everything. And he's eventually, you know, exiled from her campaign, and he, you know, where he's at now, he's trying to make his way back by capturing Tyrion and bringing him to Daenerys. Fascinating character. Just a you know, fucked up person, but like so interesting. Kevan Lannister, very interesting counterpart to Tywin, where like they both got the same upbringing and similar roles in life. But Tywin became a sociopath, and Kevan became like just a dude. He's just like I'm a stern guy that just does what needs to be done, and like not really. Well, Tywin's like, I'm gonna fuck everyone up and fuck everything up, and my family is all that matters, and I'm just gonna like ruin everyone's lives because of it. And I like that duality, but Kevan on his own he serves a very interesting purpose in contrast with Tywin, but on his own, low tier. I'm putting him up for mid tier because his contrast with Tywin is very interesting. Khal Drogo, I've never been a Khal Drogo fan. A lot of people say he was like redeemed in the story, but I think people confuse redeemed with Daenerys' Stockholm Syndrome. She 100% has Stockholm Syndrome for Khal Drogo, and I think that's what is a very interesting facet of her character, is that she does have Stockholm Syndrome for him. But people say he was good, and people say he was redeemed, and he was not good or redeemed, in my opinion. He died being his terrible Dothraki self, and I know it's bad to, like, shit on the culture, but their culture is very fucked up. Their culture involves the significant harming of other people in their cultures, and any culture that is built upon the oppression and lack of regard for other peoples is fucked up and shouldn't exist. So, or should be modified to the point where it isn't based on that. And I think that's what Daenerys is trying to do in some capacity. I think that's what she will do with the Dothraki eventually in the narrative, now that she's going back to Baze Dothrak. But people that say Khal Drogo's a good guy are wrong. He's an asshole. But you totally understand the culture he comes from. And you totally understand that his brain's like, this is how the world operates. This is how my world exists. I'm just doing how the world works. And he sees nothing wrong with that because that's how he was raised. And I'm going to say incredibly written shit tier because I hate him, but he's just so well written and he works very well as a character. Kindly Man. Jojen kind of took his role in the show, but he's the person that's training Arya, the House of Black and White. Very intriguing for plot purposes, and like teaching how the machinations of the Faceless Men worked, and like the interesting lore behind how the Faceless Men might have possibly been behind the Doom of Valyria, which is a very interesting thread in the plot that's like very loosely hinted at in the story, kind of, but it, like, if you really think about it and you really read what they're saying, it's pretty much blatant. And very interesting character, but is more of a vehicle for a plot than the character. So I'm gonna say mid tier. Kranzus, Naxlos, someone from Daenerys' story with that name. No, gotta be. I don't remember who it is, though. Lady Stoneheart is fascinating, because I was talking about Catelyn before, and talking about how, like, from the outside, like, through Jon's POV, we see a terrible person, but from her POV, we see, like, her righteousness and her attempt to save everyone and do good, and that duality is so amazing. But when she dies and is resurrected, because she was resurrected so late, 3 days after her death, majority of her brain, or memory and brain and personality, was already gone and eroded. So this resurrection is just the terrible side that Jon saw, and I think that's fascinating, because it's like, she's still going on the same mission that she was doing when she had this good side, but she's doing it purely on villainy and fascism and tyranny, and fascinating. High tier. I'm gonna put her right next to Catelyn because it's the same character. Lady, another direwolf. I'm already losing my voice from talking so much. Lancel Lannister, interesting character. You see, I would tempted to say he's a plot contrivance, he's a plot vehicle for Cersei, but he kind of has a weird development where he feels so much guilt and shame for everything he did for Cersei that he becomes a religious zealot. He just turns to religion to try to be saved, which a lot of people do in the real world when they're terrible people. They realize the error of their ways, they turn to religion try to redeem themselves, and he does do that very thing. But he becomes a religious zealot and part of the faith militant for an institution that is like the High Sparrow's crew, which is like potentially ruining Cersei's life and trying to destroy her. And he's so stuck on this redemptive path that the person he intentionally existed entirely for before is now the person he essentially exists entirely on wiping out. Hot mid. I'm going to say high tier, honestly. Very interesting character. Lemoncloak, he's one of the Brotherhood without banners, but I can't remember his actual character. Or is he with... No, he's Brotherhood without banners. I was confusing for someone that was in Young Griff's party. Lemore, on the other hand, is part of Young Griff's party. Very interesting. A lot of people theorize that she is a Sharadane. I do not think that's the case. We get to see a lot of interesting, like, assessments of who she is through Tyrion's POV when he's traveling with Young Griff's party through Essos. And I'm trying to win myself over on her, but really, we just don't know enough about her character yet. She has a lot of intriguing potential, but nothing really substantive yet, so mid-tier. That's the thing with doing a tier list of all the characters, that there's 2 massive books to come that will change everything about all the characters that are still alive. So, or even the characters that are dead, we'll learn more about them. But, yeah, Little Walder Frey, another one of the shitlings that was with Bran in Book 2. Low tier. Loras Tyrell, interesting character. You know, the closet homosexuality is pretty fascinating, and how he integrates that into his life. The love he has for his family and his sister, and how he's definitely an agent of his family and Olenna. And I'm always interested by characters that are simply agents of their family, and eventually seeing how they break off. At this point, we don't know if he's alive or dead. It's up in the air in the books. I'm interested to see if he comes back or not, because I think George can go either way with that. I'm going to say mid-tier. Lothar Brune, I don't remember who the fuck that is. Lewin... Maester Lewin, he's the Maester at Winterfell. It's very funny because he denounces magic, says all of this fantastical shit is either gone, is either never existed in the first place, or was eradicated from the world many, many years ago. And he says all this shit and talks a big game about how magic doesn't exist, science is the only real thing. Yet, when he's dying, he crawls over to a weirwood tree, knowing that in the magical lore of the series, if he dies against the weirwood tree, he could have essentially, an extended life living through the weirwood network. And I think it's so fascinating that he plays this big game with all the kids that he teaches at Winterfell, yet he believes it. He believes it deep down. He doesn't want to admit it to himself because he's a maester, and maester are men of science. But he believes the fantasy stuff. And I'm going to put him mid-tier. Lyanna Stark, plot vehicle. 100% plot vehicle. She is the instigator for the entire series, potentially Jon's mom, which I wholeheartedly believe. Rhaegar kidnapped her, triggering Robert's rebellion. Robert's rebellion caused the end of the Targaryen dynasty, which caused Daenerys to be exiled and want to come back. She is the entire mechanism from which this story runs around. And every plot thread stems from something related to her. And I think as a plot element, she is incredibly well written and placed in the story. However, we don't know barely anything about her. We know she was Arya-like, but then she does things that Arya would most definitely not do. Ned sees a lot of Arya in her. Other characters see a lot of Arya in her. But we simply don't know her real personality. So I'm going to say mid-tier. Lynn Corbury, the name sounds very familiar. Can't remember who it is. Lysa Arryn's a psycho. Littlefinger knows how to manipulate psychos. I think that's what makes him so dangerous. He can win psychopaths over to his cause. And someone that can control psychopaths is a threat. Because Lysa Arryn is indeed a psychopath, but he's completely manipulated her to the point where, she essentially lives her entire existence and betrays her family and everything for Littlefinger. And it's so interesting. It's more of a statement on Littlefinger's character, though, than her own character. I'm going to say mid-tier. Mace Tyrell, low tier. Don't really have much to say about him. Mance Rayder, incredibly interesting character, because he was a former member of the Night's Watch who eventually escaped and became a wildling, and eventually became the first person in, like, centuries to knight all the wildlings under one banner and attempt to invade Westeros. Sorry, I was just taking a water break there. He... And... I lost my train of thought drinking water. Anyway, Mance Rayder. He's alive in the books, interestingly enough, carrying out shit for Melisandre. Dead in the show, very early on. He's so interesting how low he falls. Because he rises from a Night's Watch member, very low, rises to the one man who's able to unite all the scattered tribes of the free folk beyond the wall and sort of launch a full-scale invasion of Westeros. He fails, but he got that far. And then he crumbles down to the point where he's just essentially a slave for Melisandre doing her bidding. And, like, I don't know, such an interesting character. High tier. Also his parallels to Jon, especially when Jon falls in love with Ygritte. It's like, you could so see Jon becoming the next Mance. You could so see Jon filling in that role. And there's so much, like, weight between, will Jon become the next Mance or will he become the next Ned? And it's, like, floating in this duality. And that's awesome. Very interesting. Mandamore, I don't remember what that is. Margaery Tyrell. Oh, love Margaery Tyrell. She is... It's so interesting because, like, she is definitely a Machiavellian schemer. She's definitely a political animal. And she's doing all this shit to try to manipulate everyone and get ahead politically. And yet, I think there's, like, and advance her family status, of course. But I think there's good in there. You know, and the show does a good job of showing that, where there's, like, there's morality in there. And there's a good cause deep in her heart. But it's so shrouded by, like, political connivances and, like you want to see her win. Like you want to see her win against Cersei. And to be honest, she is kind of right now at this point in the books. And oh wait, did she get in prison too? I can't remember. Scrap what I just said. I can't remember exactly. I'm conflating the show and the books. Yeah, no, like, love this character. High tier. Marilyn. Don't know who that is. I was about to say, sounds like Marwyn. Marwyn. Such an interesting character. Because he's like this throwaway line in book 1. Which means George was thinking about him in book 1. And he doesn't show up till book 4. The end of book 4. And that's genius. It's like something that Ichiro Oda would do. Where, Mirri Maz Duur is kind of like, oh, this maester, she's like an indigenous person somewhere in Essos. She's like, oh, this maester from Westeros came to Ashai and taught me all this shit. It's like, that's interesting. Why would a maester from Essos come to Ashai and teach her all this magical shit? That's really weird. And it's like, you kind of forget about it, because you're like, oh, you just forget about it. You're like, okay, like, forget about it. And then you see him again, and he's still alive, and he's still doing magic shit under the Citadel's payroll without them really, like, fully understanding. And he has a working glass castle. Not glass castle, it's a book. Glass candle. And he's a mage. He is doing magical shit behind the scenes, and under the umbrella of an institution that hates magic, has tried actively to eradicate magic from the world, and is, like, fully on the board of science over magic. Yet he's fucking around and becoming magic. And now he's off to go to Daenerys, who he thinks is... I think he probably thinks he's Azor Ahai Reborn. So he's off on his way to Daenerys. Daenerys is going to have some, like, insane council. Like, if everyone's still alive, she's gonna have Grey Worm, Barristan Selmy, Maester Morrowind, Tyrion. It's gonna be wild. It's gonna be a wild roster. He hasn't done much yet. Mid-tier. It's all a ramble to say that. Mirri Reed. She's a plot vehicle. I'm sorry. Low tier. Jojen and Mirri are plot vehicles for Bran. Hot take, but I'm just going to say it. Melisandre. I'm conflicted. Melisandre... Just looking at these characters, I'm so tempted to put her in Best of All Fiction, but I'm going to put her in high tier. She's so interesting because she does fucked up shit constantly. She's such a manipulator for Stannis. She does not care about people, only cares about her agenda. But she's not doing it for political gain. She is doing it because she is a religious fanatic who genuinely believes every step she's taking is what her god wants. And you get a peer into her head. You like, oh, she can never have a POV because she knows too much about the fantastical side of things. But George is such a genius because you get one POV chapter for her in A Dance with Dragons, and it gives so much because you learn that like she's not a schemer. She genuinely believes this. She is genuinely like a religious fanatic that believes in everything she's doing, no matter how horrible some of it is. And she like doesn't know everything. She acts as this whole like facade that she's a know-all magical being that like is in tune with the true religion of the world and is manipulating things to manipulate the grander plot. And you get this vibe that she's so on top of things, yet when you get her actual POV, she's like essentially admitting that she doesn't know shit. And that and the whole thing where she's like, I looked into the flames asking for a glimpse of Azor Ahai, and all I got was snow. It's like snow with a capital. I think that was a great misdirect by George, by the way. Snow with a capital meaning it's Jon Snow. But yeah, she based her entire existence around supporting Stannis, who she thought was Azor Ahai reborn. And now she's starting to realize, I fucked up. And just to have this such like facade of this character that knows all and is manipulating the whole story. She is manipulating the story, but she doesn't know shit. And it's so good. You know what? I'm winning myself over. Best in all fiction. Sorry. Maribald doesn't do shit in the books. Low tier. Merritt Frey, one of the Freys. Meryn Trant. Oh, I can't remember who Meryn Trant is. Mirri Maz Duur, a very interesting character, because she's this poor indigenous woman who is just, her entire life is destroyed by a Dothraki invasion led by Daenerys' husband, and Daenerys is against it, but like Mirri Maz Duur is like the one survivor that's sort of brought on into their party because she's what they consider a magi, and which essentially she just knows magic from a shy, and it's interesting, a Lazarene. Like, it's so interesting that Lazarene, which is like this small indigenous community in like the in the SOC grasslands, and she trained in the Shy, and she trained with Morrowind, and it's like this like thing where it's like there's so much more to her character, and she's not afraid to call Daenerys out on her early hypocrisy, where she's like, "You're a fucking white savior," you're acting all on your high horse. Oh, you saved this one person, so you didn't let your husband kill everyone. You're such a good person, but in fact, like, you're terrible. You do it to sleep at night, but you're complicit in his behavior. And I like that she's like the one person who's not afraid to call Daenerys out on that. And she does manipulate Daenerys quite a bit toward the end of the story, and eventually she's killed for it. But she's such an interesting portal into the world of magic, especially when like she's doing that ceremony to heal Drogo and no one's allowed in the tent, and you see these like fucked up shadows on the tent from the outside, and it's like, oh, that's so, like, you just don't get to see what's happening in the tent, but you just see these insane, like, monstrous shadows inside. You're just like, what is going on in there? She knows shit. Anyway, high tier. Melisandre, they did a lot more with her in the show. She's kind of just a plot character in the book. Low tier for the books. Makoro, very interesting character we don't know enough about. He was with Tyrion, saying some weird shit. Then he got washed away when Tyrion's ship was destroyed. When the ship that Tyrion went on was destroyed, Tyrion got taken by slavers. He got picked up by Victarion, and he is gaslighting, girl bossing, and gatekeeping Victarion, who's this dumb jock that doesn't know shit. And we'll get to Victarion when we get to him, but he's essentially just gaslight, gatekeeping, girl bossing Victarion for his agenda. And he's like, oh yeah, like it's like if you had even the slightest inkling of intelligence, like, you'll know Makoro is fucking manipulating you and is not working in your best interest. But Victarion is just so stupid that he's just like, oh, Makoro's trying to help me. This crazy religious fanatic that washed up on my ship is trying to help me, not facilitate this entire magical plot. Yeah. Mid-tier, though, because he hasn't done much yet. Myrdain. Is she the Septa that works with the High Sparrow? I can't remember exactly, so I'm going to go who. Mord? Like Morge? No. Nor's Umber. I don't remember what that is. Maya Stone. Don't remember what that is. Miranda Royce. Don't remember who that is. God. Marcella Baratheon is a plot contrivance. She has no personality of her own. She is a plot vehicle for Cersei's story and for Arianne Martell's story. Nothing else. Low tier. Nestor Royce. I don't know who that is. Sorry for all these I don't know remember who that is characters. Like, it's been a while. Nymeria Sands, one of the Sand Snakes. Where did I put the last Sand Snake? Did I put it in the low tier? I think so. Yeah. I don't care for the Sand Snakes. I understand their purpose in the plot, just don't care for them. Another Sand Snake here. Oberyn Martell. Very interesting character. He comes to, Westeros, the throne is trying to improve their ties with the Martells in sort of because that will be very advantageous for their progress in the War of Five Kings. The Martells are currently neutral in the war. So he comes to Westeros as Dorne is part of Westeros, sorry. He comes to King's Landing as sort of this envoy and new member of the small council to try to, get in there, but he is there on his own agenda. He's acting like he's a diplomat, but no, he is there on a revenge mission because they killed his sister brutally. The Mountain killed his sister brutally during the sack of King's Landing. He raped her. He smashed her children into a wall. He's just obviously any sane person would try to get revenge for that. But his brother Duran is operating on this grand 20-year plan that I talked about in part 1 of this video, and he's just quick action. This is my opportunity. I'm going to take it. And he's the fast actor to Duran's long-term schemer. And I think that's the genius of their characters in contrast to each other, where the middle ground between the two is the person that could win this situation, that could 100% successfully commit their plan, because they're on opposite ends of the stick. They're both not going to succeed. Also, Oberyn is canonically pansexual, so I'm gonna give Oberyn high tier. Did I put Duran high tier? Or did I put Duran mid tier? Because Duran should be in high tier. Where did I put Duran? Yeah, he's high tier. Put Oberyn next to Duran right there. Old man. Plot vehicle. Low tier. She's just a plot vehicle to give lore to Bran. Olenna Tyrell. Oof. Wow. She is awesome in the sense that, like, terrible human being, but you understand exactly what she's doing. She is a Machiavellian schemer, fucking up people's lives, fucking up shit, but she's doing it for the sake of making sure her family is okay and getting a high status and keeping them safe. She's a worm. She will go to any side at any given time. She has no loyalties other than herself and to her family. Like, but she's so smart. She is so smart. She's essentially taken over as this, like, you know, she has a husband. There is a male presence in the store for her family, but she is the matriarch. She is the head of the family. And she is taken over and essentially serving as a legitimate threat for, like, Cersei and her agendas, despite being, like, you know, this old lady, you know? High tier. Osprey, Kettleblack. Kettleblacks are plot characters. They're plot vehicles for Cersei. Low tier. Asha, we don't know enough about her yet. She's a cool plot vehicle, and she has some spunk and personality, but I think we're gonna get more in Winds of Winter when Davos goes to try to retrieve Rickon, because Asha took Rickon to Skagos, so we're going to see more of her then, and I think then we can make more a fair judgment. She probably will die in the next book, though. Osmond Kettleblack, Kettleblack's another plot vehicle. Can't remember which ones are which with these Kettleblack characters, but I think they're pretty much all plot vehicles. Patchface. Oof, so damn interesting. Patchface was Patchface is a court fool for the Baratheon family. Standard court fool, you know, does court fool shit. He dies. He drowns. His body is retrieved 3 days later, and his body comes to life. There is no humanity left in him. He is saying these fucked up poems and riddles, being creepy, dancing around. He is a vehicle for one of the Lovecraftian entities in the behind the scenes of this narrative. Whether it's the Great Other or not, we don't know. Melisandre is very afraid of him, which leads me to think it's the Great Other and not R'hllor. But, you know, he was resurrected from drowning. Is he the drowned god, or is the drowned god even a thing? It's so interesting how religion works in A Song of Ice and Fire, where, like, my opinion is that all the religions have partial truth, and they're all, like, sort of watered down, like, diluted messages of the original Lovecraftian entities that, like, founded the order of this universe. And Patchface is just a Lovecraft character. That's who he is. Does he have any personality other than spouting weird lore? No, but very interesting regardless. Pate, he's one of the characters at the Citadel. We haven't seen much of him at all, so I'm going to say low tier unless proven otherwise. Oh, is Pate? No. I was confusing him with someone else. Sorry. Pate is the character... We get a lot of him because he has the opening POV, prologue POV for Feast for Crows. And he's killed by Jaqen, and Jaqen takes his place. And we get to see a lot of his character. He's dumb. He's a dumb kid, and he makes dumb decisions. He has the mind of the kid. He's a kid away at college, freshman year of college, essentially, the equivalent of... falls in love with someone and makes dumbass decisions to try to get ahead, which eventually leads to his demise. He did not deserve death, but he is an asshole. He's a misogynistic asshole. He thinks that, oh, I fell in love with... Essentially, what happened is he went to Starbucks, he saw this hot goth girl barista, and he's like, oh my god, I'm in love. I gotta take her away with me. I'm gonna buy her from her parents and take her away to Essos where we can live freely. And it's like... It also is an interesting parallel to Oh my god. I'm so lost in the sauce right now that I'm forgetting guy from House of the Dragon's name. Night Guy. God, wow. That's a really bad oversight. Anyway, he's essentially a very good parallel to that character. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Did it, like, simp boy, incel simp boy that makes bad decisions and gets fucked over. Mid-tier. Paxter Redwine. Don't remember who he is. Penny. Penny is not really much of a character yet. She's more of a plot device for Tyrion. I'm gonna say it sucks because like Tyrion meets her and it's like, oh, another dwarf, whatever. He's on his like emo shit, and after he killed his dad and stuff. But the thing is, her brother, who was also a dwarf, was killed because of Cersei's mission to have anyone bringing Tyrion dead gets like a ton of money, and so it's some way like Tyrion's at fault for a lot of her shit because Tyrion could have come back and turned himself in, but he didn't, and it fucked up Penny's life. But she's not really a character that much yet. I'm gonna say mid-tier because she has potential to be. Okay, this is gonna be 3 parts. This is gonna be the end of part 2. I'm gonna call it right here. This is Peter Baelish, Littlefinger. Ugh. Genius character. Complete and utter sociopath. He is the definition of like a spurned incel. Like, you know, Chad, Brandon Stark, and Ned Stark like got ahead of him with his crush Catelyn, and he's like, I'm gonna make the world burn because I didn't get my girl. And it is pathetic, but you gave this patheticness to an absolute genius who is manipulating so much of the story to the point where if you got a POV, the story would be ruined because you know everything. And he's just playing the entire world as his puzzle and moving humans around as his puzzle pieces with no regard to their well-being just to progress his agenda. And his agenda is so mysterious, too. We still don't fully understand what he wants. And he is very pedophilic towards Sansa, and it's very uncomfortable. And I hate reading about him because he's so uncomfortable and creepy. But he's such a good character because he's so evil, you know? High tier. Okay, that's going to be the end of part 2. I'll finish this up next time. So, thank you for watching. Goodbye.